Greetings, humans of the internet. Welcome once again to Bowtie Talks. I, of course, am your excellent host, Luke Johnson, coming to you as usual from my undisclosed location, Midwest USA, with some more historical insights. To kind of follow up on last week's episode about the history of Christmas specials, I figured now would be a good time to discuss the history of Christmas movies, because it's quite a story to say the least. In fact, Christmas movies have been around for about as long as there's been a film medium, as we will soon hear. So please bear with me and buckle up as I discuss the history of American Christmas movies, because it's quite a tale. Now, the very first Christmas movie was called, quite appropriately, Santa Claus, which was released in 1898. And it was a technical marvel and groundbreaking cinematic creation for its time. And it was one of the first movies to use parallel action, which allowed viewers to see Santa on the rooftop and the children in the nursery at the same time. And in 1901, the first adaptation of A Christmas Carol was produced. However, it was not until the 1940s that Christmas movies really came to fruition, and the reason behind that might be World War II. Tours and support workers were spread globe. They yearned for home and traditions, especially around the holidays. Humans craved familiarity, to say the least. And one of the first Christmas musicals was released in 1942 when America was deeply, deeply in World War II. And that movie, of course, is the Bing Crosby and Fred Astaire classic, Holiday Inn. The movie tells the story of Linda Mason, who is caught in a triangle between singer Jim Hardy and dancer Ted Hanover, played by Bing Crosby and Fred Astaire, respectively. Ted Hanover wants Linda for his new dance partner after his former dance partner, Lila Dixon, ditches him. Jim Hardy's supper club, Holiday Inn, is the setting for the chase by Hanover and his manager. This, of course, was followed by It's a Wonderful 1946, Jimmy Stewart, and in her first lead role, Donna Reed, who, of course, would later go on to star in the 1950s sitcom The Donna Reed Show. The 1956 movie tells the story of a man who has spent his entire life giving of himself to other people in the town of Bedford Falls, New York. He has always longed to travel, but never had the opportunity in order to prevent Rich Skinflint Mr. Potter from taking over the entire town. All that prevents him from doing so is George's modest building and loan company, which was founded by his generous father. But on Christmas Eve, George's Uncle Billy loses the business's $8,000 while intending to deposit it in the bank. And Mr. Potter finds the misplaced money and hides it from Uncle Billy. When the bank examiner discovers the shortage later that night, George realizes that he will be held responsible and sent to jail, and the company will collapse, finally allowing Mr. Potter to take over the town. Thinking of his wife Mary, played by Donna Reed, and their 4 children, and others he loves, he believes he will be better off dead, and he contemplates suicide. But the prayers of his loved ones are answered, and come in the form of a guardian angel coming to Earth to help him with things been worse if he had never been born. And interestingly, although it is now considered a classic, it bombed at the box office. This was partially due to the high cost of making the film, and a crowded post-war market with other heavy dramas, and the fact that it was released in late January rather than during the Christmas season. And audiences were not ready to face such dark themes so close after World War II. This was followed in 1947 by a movie called It Happened on Fifth Avenue. We have the second richest man in the world named Michael J. O'Connor, who vacates his Fifth Avenue mansion every year at Christmas for Florida. And every winter, a homeless man named Aloysius T. McKeever moves into the vacated mansion. In one particular winter, McKeever meets Jim Bullock, an Army veteran who has recently been evicted from his apartment and offers to share the mansion with him. And it's not long before the mansion has a few more guests, including 2 of Jim's already and their wives and children. One-away heiress Trudy McConnell and Michael J. O'Connor. Quite a heartwarming story, to say the least. And interestingly, Frank Capra was up to direct this movie, but he turned it down in favor of It's a Wonderful Life. Also, in 1947 came another classic movie, and that, of course, is Miracle on 34th Street, which told the story of a little girl and a lawyer who have to prove that a man claiming to be Santa Claus is in fact the genuine article. And unlike It's a Wonderful Life, Miracle on 34th Street would become an instant success when it aired in 1947. Or I should say when it was released in 1947. It was nominated and won 3 Academy Awards. The writer of Miracle on 34th Street, Valentine Davies, claimed he got the idea for the story while standing in line at a big department store during the Christmas season. The realization that Christmas was becoming more commercialized sparked the first broad strokes of the story that would become Miracle on 34th Street. And Davies took his idea to director-writer George Seaton, who in turn hammered out a solid screenplay from it he called The Big Heart. The story was about a disillusioned woman, her skeptical daughter, and a mysterious man who believes he is the real Santa Claus. Was about love, Christmas, spirit, generosity, and the magic of believing when common sense tells you not to. The people at 20th Century Fox loved the script and decided to move forward with production on it. However, there was only one potential problem, and it was a big one. Macy's department store and its real-life rival, Gimbel's, figured prominently in the story, and the script used the store's real names. In order to get away with it, Macy's and Gimbel's would both have to eventually grant their approval. And 20th Century Fox made Macy's and Gimbel's aware that the film was going into production, but representatives from neither store would be allowed to see anything until it was completed. And it was quite a bold move on Fox's part to make a film without either store signing off on it ahead of time. A rejection from them, especially Macy's, would mean major restructuring of the film once it was already done. This also has to be considered to this day. However, 20th Century Fox had faith that the stores would ultimately be pleased with how they were represented and decided to move forward with optimism. In October of 1946, actress Maureen O'Hara was in Ireland visiting family members she had not seen in years. And when O'Hara received word from her home studio of 20th Century Fox just a few days into her trip that she was supposed to report back to the U.S. immediately to begin work on a new film, she was absolutely furious. After waiting 7 years, my reunion had been cut short by the studio, O'Hara would later write in her 2004 autobiography entitled "'Tis Herself." I was heartbroken, furious, and reduced to tears. I almost refused to go back, but knew I had no choice. I was madder than a wet hen the whole flight back. How dare they, I fumed. How dare they force me back to make a silly little movie about Santa Claus? And when O'Hara returned to American soil and finally had a chance to read the script, she fell in love with it. And she knew it was going to be a hit. And with shooting to begin in November on The Big Heart, as it was still called, the rest of the cast was quickly assembled. John Payne was hired to play Maureen O'Hara's love interest, aspiring lawyer Fred Gailey. And it would be the third film in which O'Hara and Payne co-starred. To play Maureen O'Hara's daughter, the studio chose young and up-and-coming child actress Natalie Wood, whom O'Hara called, and I quote, a remarkably endearing 8-year-old. And British character actor Edmund Gwynn would portray Santa Claus. While the cast and production team knew that they were about to make a hit, no one had any idea they were about to become a part of a timeless holiday classic. And shortly afterward, there would be a new media boom in the form of television. Due to the 3 early big networks, NBC, CBS, and ABC, rebroadcasting old films to fill airtime, This Is How, It's a Wonderful Life, and Miracle on 34th Street became so synonymous with family viewing. It aired quite a bit over the new medium around late December when most people were stuck and snowed in at home. A noted meteor scholar, Marshall McLuhan, who infamously appeared in Annie Hall, said that the medium was the message. And one key message of television was you could stay in and enjoy movies from the comfort of your own home. And as TV sets became a more common fixture in American homes, holiday movies became a more solid tradition. And I would now like to discuss my personal favorite Christmas movie, of course, is 1983's A Christmas Story. When it premiered, it was a new breed of holiday movie, one that acknowledged, even relished, the unbridled avarice, the commercialism, the disappointments, the hurt feelings, and all-around bad luck that many of us find during Christmas time. It brought a bracing blast of satire and realism wrapped up in a hilarious tale of a middle-class family negotiating the perils of Christmas. The screenplay and book on which A Christmas Story were based were both written or partially written in the screenplay by one of my all-time favorite writers, Gene Shepard, who first told his short stories on his radio show during the 50s and 60s and 70s. And fans of Shepard's radio monologues include many famous people, including Tom Wolfe and Jerry Seinfeld, just to name a few. Later, some of Gene Shepard's stories would be published in Playboy magazine, including the story from which the plot device of the Red Ryder BB gun and the overall setting of the movie Christmas Story was taken, Duel in the Snow, or Red Ryder Nails the Cleveland Street Kid. Gene Shepard's personal friend, children's writer and illustrator Shel Silverstein, would encourage Shep to write down some of his short stories. And in 1966, they were collected and published in a novel called In God We Trust, All Others Pay Cash, which became a bestseller. And Gene Shepard soon found a fan in movie director Robert Clark. Bob Clark, I should say, and they soon began writing a screenplay along with Gene Shepard's third wife, Lee Brown. However, it took over a decade for the movie to finally be made. Clark's success with the 1982 gross-out film Porky's for MGM to finally greenlight the script that would become A Christmas Story, although it was originally called, I should note, Santa's Revenge, which is honestly not surprising. Peter Billingsley, the actor who played Ralphie in the movie, pointed out, "I think it took so long to get made because the movie, by modern day standards, is about nothing. It's a family a couple of weeks before Christmas and the kid wants a BB gun. That's not exactly to say, let me get the president on the phone." And MGM finally gave Clark $4.4 million to make A Christmas Story. And once the cast was assembled, there were production challenges. First was the problem of location. They scouted at least 20 cities before finally settling on Toronto for the interior shots and Cleveland for the exterior shots. It was appropriately winter and cold in Ohio, but no snow could be found. They ended up having to haul snow in from ski resorts hundreds of miles away. And when the weather got warmer, they concocted snow out of falling potato flakes and used shredded vinyl as snow set dressing, and further employed the firefighters' foam. In vignettes where Ralphie, his friends, and his little snow-suited brother, Randy, are fleeing from Scott Farkas, the bully with the yellow eyes, they are in fact sloshing through foam. The set was mostly harmonious, however, there was some friction between Gene Shepard and director Bob Clark. Gene Shepard was extremely protective of his work and would often give actors notes and direct, even though Clark himself was the director. Until finally, Clark himself barred Gene Shepard from the set. However, it should be noted that Gene Shepard narrated the movie, and he also makes a brief appearance during the film. The next time you watch the movie, pay close attention to the scene in the department store. Gene Shepard is the man who tells Ralphie, "The line ends here. It begins there." The film opened to modest success, but it would become a cult classic when, in the 90s, it would air on the Turner Network in 24-hour increments. And with that, I'm afraid I may have to call it a night, folks. But I hope you've enjoyed our little trip through Tinseltown Christmas, and you will be back, well, not next week because I'll be in my hometown. I won't be able to record, so this may actually be my last podcast of the year. But with that in mind, thank you, goodbye, God bless, Merry Christmas, and remember, you'll shoot your eye out.